Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Well, Season 8 of Game of Thrones has begun, and winter has finally come, and the Night King is here. How can we ever possibly defeat him? How can we ever defeat the Night King? You know what my answer is? Yeah, pretty easily, actually. And no, it doesn't involve Bran going back in time as Jon Connor and altering the timeline to erase the Night King from existence. It doesn't involve Jon Snow turning into azor ahai with a magical flame sword that can kill the Night King. And it certainly doesn't involve the Night King's death phantom menacing all of the wights, as they've already suggested.
Killed him. He turned them all.
Seriously, I hate it in movies when they do that. They do it all the time and it just seems cheap. No, we don't need any of that gay magical stuff. All we need is the dragons, the obsidian, and a couple of shovels. Let me explain. So the threat of the Night King is sort of divided into three pieces. We've got the Night King himself, we've got his White Walkers, we've got his wights, and we've got his ice dragon. First, the ice dragon. This one is probably the most trouble you gotta deal with because its blue fire breath can destroy fortifications. So all that's gonna take is one pass with that thing across Westeros and you're completely screwed. So the battle is really won when this thing is taken out. Once this thing is taken out, it's actually pretty easy. But how? How do we take out the ice dragon? Once again, pretty easily, because this thing is not a wight, so it's not going to be destroyed by fire like a wight is. It's basically a White Walker, which means you need to kill it with dragon glass. But as we've seen with dragon glass, you only really need like one little bit to completely explode a White Walker. So then in theory, just one single arrow of dragon glass piercing the skin would be enough to make the entire ice dragon shatter like glass and the Night King just comedically falling to the ground. But how could you ever do something like that? I mean, you got the ice dragon shooting its blue fire, you've got the Night King, maybe he's on top of it throwing his ice spears around. How could you ever get a shot off in the midst of all that? Well, remember the Night King, he has almost 360 degree firing range where he can throw his spears, but he can't throw his spears downwards because the dragon is underneath him. So that means anyone who's underneath him would have a clear shot up at the dragon, but anyone underneath him would be vulnerable to the fire from the dragon, so you'd need to be kind of under but towards the back. That's the blind spot. So basically if you're nose to nose with the dragon's butthole, you're safe. You can't get hit with a spear, you can't get hit with dragon fire. If you can see the butthole, you're safe. And the butthole would actually be a good target because it's probably softer skin around there, right? So you wouldn't really need to worry that much about penetrating the skin as long as you're just accurate, just aim for... Okay, I'm going to stop talking about the dragon's butthole. And the fact that you got two dragons to help you out is very useful because while the ice dragon focuses on one, the other dragon can bite him in the ass. When he turns around to face that one, the other dragon can bite him in the ass. And so on, and so on, and so on. So give Jon Snow and Dany a couple of crossbows with those obsidian arrows, one shot, and they're done. Combine this also with if on the ground you got a couple of guys with like those scorpions with some obsidian strapped to the spearhead, or just a bunch of plain old archers. You got a whole bunch of stuff flying up at the dragon. Its entire belly is exposed. Unless of course the Night King's dragon shows up wearing like full armor, then you're kind of in trouble. But even then you could still just aim for the wings. I mean, there's plenty of target area there you can hit. So how do we kill the dragon? Pretty easily. We just use the two dragons to distract it, and just all we need is one shot from somebody with obsidian. He's a big enough target. Pretty easy. So once the ice dragon's gone, how are you going to deal with the wights, the White Walkers, and the Night King himself? Well, here's where I want to do a little bit of a response to Shadiversity's video on this. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite channels, by the way. But Shadiversity has made the point in his video that you can't really use a castle to defend against the wights and the White Walkers because they could always World War Z the wall. They could just pile up on top of each other like ants and just spill over the top of the wall. And this is correct. But rather than this being a flaw, I actually think this could be used as a battle tactic, because Winterfell, like a lot of castles, is divided into sections. So if you swarm over one wall, you don't have the castle, you just have that section now, and you've got to take the next section and the next section and the next section. So what I would propose is that when the wights breach the wall in one location, everyone pulls back to the secondary wall, and once the entire section is filled with wights and White Walkers, Dany's dragon just needs to stick its head over the secondary wall and spew out a whole lot of fire, clearing the entire courtyard. And if there's any wights mixed in there, then archers with obsidian arrows can take them out. More will then spill in. Once the courtyard's filled, you do it once again. In this way, you could turn the Castle of Winterfell itself into like a killing field for the wights and the White Walkers. Because every time they breach one wall, they need to gather enough wights in that section to again pile up and breach the second wall. So you've got time waiting for it to fill. During that time, the archers can pick out the White Walkers, and then good old Dragonfire finishes them off.
And when you've got very large numbers of men like that, you can go about the siege in quite a different way. For instance, you've got the manpower to simply build a ramp. There's something called an agger, which is also sometimes called an embankment, but you might just think of it as a ramp. A socking great big earth ramp. So the city, let's say, got a 70-foot wall. You couldn't possibly get over a 70-foot wall. No brigands would take on a 70-foot wall. It's just beyond them. But if you've got tens of thousands of men, if a big enough army turned up, then they were able to build these massive siege works so quickly. Now, what could you do if someone's building an agger towards you? Well, they built a semicircular wall on the inside of their fortification. So if ever the Spartans did actually manage to get over the wall using their ramp, they would find themselves, having conquered a small semicircular space, and then they've got another wall to deal with, and then how are we going to get tens of thousands of people in here to build a ramp because it's really small and they keep dropping stones on us, and they're just, this is just awful.
You could actually increase this by digging trenches, a series of trenches throughout all the different courtyards, so that when the White Walkers do spill over a wall, to get to the secondary wall, they'll fall into a trench, they have to fill that up, then they fall into the second trench, they have to fill that up, then they fall into the third trench, and they have to fill that up. Only then can they start trying to make it over the secondary wall. So you could increase the numbers of wights that would have to fill up this area, and again you get to wipe them all out with one burst of dragonfire. And it would also be good if they could get their hands on some wildfire. I'd recommend putting like a foot of wildfire down in the base of each of these trenches, so that way even if you don't have dragonfire, you could just throw a torch in there and you can get them all. Hell, even if both your dragons got killed in the process of taking down the ice dragon, you could still do this. I mean, once the trenches fill up, you could just throw fire bombs like old school. You could just have some guy walk in there with a torch and just light them while they're stuck down in the pit. But what are we going to do with all this dirt that we've dug out of all these trenches? We're going to stack it behind all of the outer walled doors, because Jon Snow has seen previously the White Walkers are capable of breaking through wooden doors and wooden barriers. Granted, the gates at Winterfell would be far stronger than what the wildlings put together here, but if you stack a whole bunch of dirt behind it, even if they do break through the wall, there's just a mound of dirt there. They'd have to tunnel through all that as well. I'd actually recommend that they completely sealed off Winterfell. Take some bricks from non-essential inner buildings inside Winterfell and use it to actually completely wall over the gate. Then fill it up with dirt, then you got the gate, then more dirt. There's no way they're getting through that. They would have to go over the walls, and then they fall into the fire pits with all our trenches. But then what would you do with the Night King himself? Because it's possible that you can't kill him in the same way you would kill just normal White Walkers, because them you can kill with dragonglass with obsidian, but he actually has a piece of dragonglass in his chest, so it's possible it won't even affect him. This is why some people think you need the special azor ahai flaming sword to kill him, because how else are you going to kill him? He might be unkillable. So how are we going to kill him? My answer is, we're not. Hi guys, I just wanted to let you know, if you need any artwork done, the guy you want to talk to is my buddy Jack Birchfield. He designed the book cover for the book that I'm going to be releasing pretty shortly. He won the logo making competition for Movie Mania, but this guy does so much more than that. He does comic books, he does puppets, he does full entire costumes, he's a sculptor, he's a writer, he's really a jack of all trades. I'm extremely happy with the work that he's done. If you need any kind of artistic work done for pretty much any project, Jack is the guy you want to talk to. You can contact him on his website or his Instagram, all of which are linked below. Alright, let's get back into it. Once he loses enough of his force and he knows it's not possible to take this castle, he's gonna leave and head back north of the wall. So just rebuild the wall and leave him up there. And sure, he'll probably come back in 1,000 years, but that's for a future generation to deal with. Because if he doesn't retreat back up north of the wall and he still tries to take the castle, even when he's lost most of his force, you've still got the numbers. You can just push him down a well or something and then just seal it over and just leave him there. You can rally him down into the crypts, just wall him up in the crypts, just leave leave them there forever. I mean, wights might have enhanced strength, but they're not like Superman. They can't punch down walls, right? So my friends, this is my admittedly amateurish and borderline insane plan to take out the Night King and his entire army without ever needing any magic, any time travel, any prophecies of flaming swords and azor ahai or any of that. We don't need any of it. All we need is the dragon glass to take out the ice dragon and the White Walkers, a shovel to dig a bunch of trenches, and lots of fire. That's all we need. So, I am Bandit, this is Bandit Incorporated. Until next time, I will see you guys in the comments.